See, you just start vibing to that synth and then it ends. And it's like, yeah, come on.
It comes in very much like In Your Eyes by Peter Gabriel.
Yeah.
I thought it was a Muzak version of that. And then you're right, Chris, it does kind of blossom into full-blown almost hold music, but like a majestic kind of hold music.
Yeah, I'm still working, and this is just, we're still just chatting right now, even though whatever. I've commissioned a musician friend of mine to produce like an instrumental 30-second like more punk rock intro. He just is like wildly insanely busy, believe it or not, about musicians in the Midwest. And so like hopefully we'll figure it out, but I don't know. It's coming eventually, but until then we have that sweet synth music introducing Lungbox Punk. This is a super special, super duper, very full house live stream on a Wednesday. It's New Comic Book Day. We're celebrating 2 campaign launches at the same time, because why have one when you can have 2? And it's all sorts of insanity that's coming your way. Thanks for tuning in and checking it out. If this is your first time here, I'm Chris, I'm the punk, and going clockwise as you see it. I hope we've got Fred right here. He is up super late past my bedtime. And so thanks for drinking Red Bull right before we started. That's appreciated. We've got Ian down there. Ian, thanks for joining and being back. And then we've got Jay just below me, setting an all-time show record with his 3rd appearance, the 2nd panel, and the 3rd comic that you have talked about on the show with me. So thanks, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. That's a lot to say all in the first 2 minutes of the show.
Well, take a breath. Take a breath. We have some time. It's all right.
We've got so much time. I mean, it's not like anybody's missing anything right now, right?
It's all good.
Yeah, totally. All right. So we've got, I wrote down some very psychopathic killer looking notes down here, mainly so that I can remember what the names of all the things that you guys have going on are. So because you're right here, we'll start last and then go reverse. So Jay, you've got Family Matters live on Kickstarter right now. This is the 2nd story in the Addison Grove like mythos world that you're creating. You've got Alex Cormack doing artwork this time, focused on werewolves and terrifying things that go bump in the night. What did I miss? Tell me about Family Matters.
Oh, I think that's it. No, I'm just kidding.
Nailed it.
Excellent.
You said it all. I'm good. I'm just gonna go here. No, I mean, Family Matters is kind of a fun mashup of genres. It's a little bit love story. It's a little bit serial killer, and it's a little bit werewolf. You know, all mashed up in a blender. And I think I'm really excited and having a fun with Addison Grove and kind of the series is, you know, having this town, I get to play around in different subgenres, write different stories, and they're all kind of self-contained. Obviously, the town is kind of a big, ligament to hold them all together, and there's some fun little Easter eggs too that'll kind of pop up from the beginning story, from Graveyard Shift, kind of all the way through, you know, Family Matters and the next 2 books.
That's awesome.
Off, but you know, it's so hard. When you get into superhero comics and other things, you know, sometimes it's overwhelming to where do I jump in, or, you know, some people maybe they come across, if I get to, you know, the 3rd book, they finally, you know, kind of hear about Addison Grove and they're like, well, crap, now there's 2 books that I'm missing. It's like, well, no, jump right in. You know, this is a good place to go. Yeah.
Nailed it. Yeah, the thing that I'm looking forward to is in my town. It's not a huge town between 2 bigger metropolitans, but like we definitely have our like hometown characters that you see all the time. Like we have Mountain Dew guy who always like walks around. His sweatpants are always like mid-thigh. And he's always got a 2-liter Mountain Dew at like forever. We've got a guy that only ever drives like a World War II motorcycle with the sidecar. And like, he just drives it around all the time in the summer. And we've got a dude that rides like the old school giant, like 7-foot front wheel of a bicycle. And then the like long arching with the tiny little wheel in the back. We have one of those guys too. And so like my wife and I have started creating like a bingo card of like hometown characters to see over the summer. And like those are my 3 favorite because they're just so like they're so freaking my hometown.
Now, my question is Mountain Dew Guy his legal name?
I hope so.
You've almost painted a complete picture. Part of me is like, oh, it sounds like you live in a Wes Anderson movie. But like depending on like how it's shot and the lighting, it could be a David Lynch movie. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
And I like that kind of ambiguity. And by the way, when we all get to watch this back, I want everyone to look at Frederik's face the minute Jay says the word werewolves, because my man just lit up, right? Like because that's Frederik's favorite thing.
It's true.
Yeah. And I would be lying if I said I wasn't trying to work on a werewolf story, at the moment. But
just for him to do the artwork on.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Well, I mean, as you can see, I have right here. On my wall.
Oh,
and then what you can't see is actually my other wall is all my werewolves, like American Werewolf in London poster, some art, original artwork from some different artists.
I thought you were just going to say it was all fur.
Yeah. No, that's upstairs in my bedroom.
Ooh!
Yeah, I've heard you have seen his bedroom, so it's not a surprise.
I've spent so much time in there. You've spent so much time. It's like one of those apps where you can do the 3D modeling just with your camera.
Yeah,
I have that just burned into my brain.
I mean, of course, it's usually so dark when in there, so he probably doesn't know everything.
Right.
Fair. Are those yours dogs again, Jay? Saying hi? Yeah, looks like it. All right, perfect. As you tame the wolves that you've got now, Ian and Fred, let's jump over. So you've got Stash Box, which is a psychological neighborhood creepy otherworldly one-shot 36-page horror story that I think you've got a lot of really cool like things that you're including from reading the Kickstarter. What did I miss, Ian, when you were creating it? And then Fred, like what have you been secretly like sneaking into your artwork as you're creating this story?
So I really like the things that I hide in all of my stories are just like the therapy that I do on myself by writing them, right? So the whole thing with Stash Box, it's about 2 young adults who basically make like kind of a snap decision, right? And there's this period when you turn 18 that you are technically an adult, right? And you're allowed to do adult things, you're allowed to sign up for the military, right? You're allowed to smoke cigarettes, or I guess maybe not anymore, but you're in the eyes of the law, you're an adult. But like we all know, we've all been 18, and you're not an adult at 18. You're not an adult till at least 25. Some might even say I'm not an adult, and I'm going to be 48 this year. So the whole thing is that I, as someone who's got a kid who's going to turn 18 in a couple of years, I realized I was so worried about just those kind of snap decisions going wrong, right? Like we've all heard those horror stories, or we know someone from like our high school that got in the wrong car after a party or on prom night or something. And it was that's a very kind of anxiety inducing moment for me. And like, that is how I worked it out, was in the script of Stash Box. And I don't know what Frederik's answer is going to be, but I'll pass it over to him and just say that what he did with my script when he saw it, he infused so much life, so much soul, and so many great reference points, right? And in a way, like he gave it his vision, but he also kind of helped me see the whole picture of what this book was, right? And I think that's really helped, like in us communicating it to everybody.
Well, yeah. I mean, when I read the script that Ian sent me, I was like, I could not have written a better script for myself if I tried. It was so on point. It was so great. It like immediately connected with me in a way that I wasn't really expecting to. And that period of time that Ian is talking about, I kind of tried to evoke with the art as well, because we all have like those 5 or 6 horror films that we look back on like in our teenage years that we just love. And for me, that's Mario Bava's Black Sabbath. That's the original Creep Show. that's the Tales from the Crypt series, and that's also the Resident Evil games. And I just took that visual style and kind of morphed it with Ian's script, and I've just been able to draw so much from that and draw so much on the page and just create this world that Ian gave me in such a unique and interesting way that I've like really kind of reinvented part of my style for this, but in just an absolutely positive way, because this is the first project that I'm inking entirely traditionally as well. Okay. So it's just been such a blast to connect with Ian, connect with the story in such a great way, and to, like Ian said, feel that teenage nostalgia coming through, but I'm here for the horror. And like when that starts coming in, you know, when you read it, you'll know that's where this sings.
Yeah. Just buckets of goop.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Buckets and buckets of goop. Listen, and I think that's like, that was one of the things, is that Frederik is such a scholar of horror films, right? There's I would say a consequential age difference between us, and I cannot recommend anything that this man has not seen. Right? I'm like, oh, I got a deep cut for him. I was like, what about The Hidden? And he's like, great movie, loved it. I'm like, all right. It's like, so, but he mentioned Black Sabbath, and that was kind of the linchpin for me. He recommended it. I watched it. I think it's free on YouTube. That you guys can check it out. And it is sweet. Black Sabbath walked so Creepshow could run, right? And I know Creepshow is like, you know, like ancient, right? It's like a 1980s, early 80s movie. And Black Sabbath is a little bit older than that. But man, like when I watch Black Sabbath, I'm like, I know what he's giving me now, right? I can see the stuff that I bring to the script and the vision that I have for it and the feeling that he's got for it. And they kind of meet in these kind of like almost giallo-like stories or whatever. And and that was just it. And like once that happened, I mean, we were already on the rails at that point, but the big struggle of like, how do you communicate this to backers? Like that was the big thing. And that was like and Frederik could tell you, like, I was really struggling with like how to write a synopsis for this and how to figure out how to communicate it to people, and just kind of marrying that style. It made everything make sense. And that's actually a question, Jay, that I've got for you, right? Because like, I kind of want to know how it works with you, where I think that my process is a little weird, where like, I don't really know what I'm doing until it's done. Do you know what I mean? I've been yelled at for writers about this. Like I've rewritten scripts because like the theme that I was going for wasn't what I ended up with. And like, I had to kind of either change the theme to make it work better or like rewrite. Do you know what I mean? So I'm just kind of curious, like, how does that work for you? Like between when you're coming up with an Addison Grove story, like what kind of starts the story, and then like what changes about it until it gets to the final, the final draft or whatever.
I think it just depends on the story, maybe how long the idea has been percolating in my head. How much I've thought about it. I mean, like Family Matters it's changed a little bit over its life. It actually started, I just kind of had an idea that I wanted to do, and I wrote a short film script of it, just because I wanted to. I mean, no particular reason. And then it's just something that, sat on my hard drive for a while. Then when I kind of started doing comics, I had done Morsels, and then I had kind of I couldn't decide if I wanted it for Morsels or for another idea that I was kind of playing with. But I just started rewriting it, wrote it as a comic strip, or not comic strip, comic script, I should say. And about that time, I kind of started to notice Alex Cormack's work. He did Road of Bones with Rich Stewart, then later Sea of Sorrows. He had done Sync with John Lees, and I absolutely loved his style. So that was kind of the time I was like, hey, what about doing a werewolf story? And he's like, hell yeah. And unfortunately, it was just one of those things where his schedule just didn't line up with my schedule, with what I was doing, and it's just kind of been a back and forth and sitting. So I made a little bit of changes for it, I think, for Addison Grove, just because, like I said, there's a little bit of a linchpin that kind of creeps his way through each of these stories. So if you've read Graveyard Shift, you kind of know, if you know, you know. But yeah, I mean, and it was just a fun idea that I had. So it's been pretty much the same beginning to end. Now, other stories, sometimes I'll just get a fun idea. I got, certain scenes in my head, and so I'll write those, and I really just, kind of trying to figure out how to connect them. So that might change. Certain things don't work with what I'm coming up with. I don't know. It's a whole variety of stuff, I think, for me.
Yeah. That's curious that it started off as a movie script. I think that's like I don't want to take over for Chris here, but
go for it, man.
No, I was going to say, but that is something that I'd like to talk to you about it later, because I'd like to see how easy that seems to me to be. I don't want to but it seems like it would be easy. It's already a movie script. Moving it to a comic would be easy, but I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that I'm not thinking about along the way.
Gotcha.
It is interesting that you mentioned that, because I have had several other folks on the show that have said, like, yeah, I started making movies and then realized, like, holy crap, it's going to cost so much money to make this movie. How else can I tell the story? Well, it's already visual. Like, maybe I can do it as a comic, and then converting the movie script into a comic script, because everybody writes scripts differently.
Right.
Like, we can't all be Robert Kirkman, where it's like, this page has this happen, and then the artist just goes bonkers and is like, nailed it. Okay. This page, so-and-so dies. Like, we can't all do that. Right. So it's the bones of a movie script and the bones of a comic script can actually look like very similar. Mm. It then just becomes the collaboration piece of the writer, who had to think of all of the thumbnails and the shots and the perspectives and, framing and all of those things, now has to explain what their vision was to their artist, to then be able to put their turn and their talent into what that page looks like. So along those lines, Fred, like, have you, in working with multiple writers, or even like going from writing your own stuff, because I know you've got the webcomic that's coming back, like, is that a challenge for you, like going from making your own thing where you're writing and doing the art to then working with an artist, especially one as challenging as Ian, where, like,
tell me about it. He just has to work with me, Chris. I have to live with me 24 hours a day. Okay,
that's true.
So pity me.
But like, what is that mind shift like for you, going from all you to working with different writers?
I'd say honestly, it's not that massive, because my scripts, the scripts that I write for myself, the scripts that I write for Seconds to Midnight, they're either 2-page stories up to 6-page stories. So they're very short, and I know kind of the beat that I want to hit with whatever story that I'm doing. But when I'm presented with a bigger script and a longer story, that's where I really get to basically apply what I've studied for myself during the Seconds to Midnight stories. Because Seconds to Midnight, in the beginning, as much as it is my baby and my darling and my passion project, it also started as my portfolio for horror comics. I got hired for a bunch of gigs because of it. So it's basically just me training. And then when I get handed a longer script, that's when I really get to, like, shine and try different things out. And I like to be very communicative with Ian about changing certain panels, maybe reframing certain panels. I've added a couple of panels as well, because to kind of like draw a parallel, you guys talking about film scripts, I used to be a videographer before I did comics full time. Okay. So I have a very cinematic approach in my head. Like I said, huge fan of horror films, but also just used to be a videographer. I have a very cinematic approach to the way that I frame stuff. And so adapting a script that's written essentially for me, ultimately, when it gets handed to me, is easy. But when I do the Seconds to Midnight stuff, for me, that's for fun, essentially. That's like, because if I draw something for myself, write something for myself, that's just the thing that I feel like drawing. You know, it's just a little dopamine hit. And the longer script, you know, obviously because it takes that much more time, has the larger payoff in the end.
Yeah. Is it difficult, or like, is it a different exercise for you going from the 2-page to like a 6-page and then to this 36-page? Like, is that easier or harder? Like, is it the same pieces, just more repetition of like, hit the beats, hit the high marks, hit the low marks, get the action, get the turn page? Like, what is that format or the skeleton of how you're crafting those stories like alter for the length of the script that you're given?
It depends. I've looked at a couple of scripts, some of which I've went with, some of which I rejected, where I knew that the 2-page format had set me up for pretty literally a very setup and payoff kind of story. So I know the non-horror stuff that needs to happen so that the horror stuff really shines. And to me, when, you know, I take stash books, for example, they're, not to like spoil anything, but there is quite a lot of non-horror stuff that happens, and then the horror stuff just kind of like enters pretty abruptly. And I think the 2-page stuff actually prepared me pretty well for that, because like the page real estate that you have with 2 pages is you have to know how to set up something so that it pays off within the span of just 2 pages. So it's basically just stretching that out over quite a long period of time. And I just enjoy drawing the quieter scenes as well. Like some of my favorite pages in Stashbox so far are, you know, just scenes of characters talking, or scenes of just, you know, shots of rooms being entered or just being empty.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's good that you've got the enjoyment of both parts, because as a horror artist, like, I would just assume like, oh yeah, he just likes, you know, the like playing with the monsters and making these really gruesome things happen. Like, that's the sweet spot, and everything else like is the necessity of it. So it's great that you enjoy those other parts too.
Oh, yeah.
So that you don't just have a constant like schlock fest happening where it's like, yeah, just blood and guts everywhere, just go crazy.
Yeah, no,
But
it's the joy of it, I think, again, not to spoil too much of the story, but the joy of it is you have to connect with the characters. And like when you're watching a movie, of course, the acting does a lot for you. But when you're drawing a comic, you have to frame and center and tell your characters visually in a way that the reader will like emote towards them and relate to them in a way. And especially with horror, because, you know, horrible stuff happens and you have to be scared with someone in the story. So that's important for me. And that's why it's so exciting for me to draw the quieter scenes as well, to like actually have the full scope of emotion that you're trying to hit with a creepy story like this.
The real estate thing, it always intrigues me, because I'm always thinking about what constraints, like what external constraints are put on the work that I do, right? And because I try to minimize them as much as possible, right? Like I don't want to work for a publisher who's going to tell me like what I can or can't do, or and all that kind of stuff. But like real estate's a big thing, because, and I'm curious to ask Jay this question as well, but it's like I'm always trying to cram as much as possible into my scripts, right? Like there can be no wasted real estate, because these pages are expensive as a creator, right? Like when it's all said and done, the art to the printing to the shipping and everything, like it really, really adds up per page. And so like, that's why I focus on one shots. That's why like Jay, we try to do thematically related stories, yet not concurrent issues that need to be read chronologically. Yeah. But like, I think that's one of the good things about my writing, is because like I'm focused on making every single panel worthwhile, right? And it's like, if they're having a conversation, the conversation needs to relate to something that's going on in the book, either thematically or physically. Like there's no small talk, right? Yeah. But then on the other side of that, I think about, am I not letting any of these moments breathe because I don't want to use a full page for like someone going through a reaction. Do you know what I mean? And like, that's where I'm kind of like, am I shooting myself in the foot by not letting the story expand a little bit more, or not get a little bit longer? And I think that's the kind of balance I run. That's kind of what I wanted to ask you, Jay, is like, how concerned are you with the economy of your storytelling? Like, do you worry about page count, like starting out, right? Like, because I know you've done some anthologies, right? And like, that's always like the big thing, is like, how do I pack this many twists or turns or this many reveals into like 6 or 8 pages or whatever? So like, do you care about length? Do you start off like, it can't go longer than this? Do you find yourself like shortening stories, or do you not even like, do you just kind of let it go until it goes?
Can I add to that real quick? And
Sure.
how do you pace how do you pace the non-horror stuff versus the actual horror stuff? Is there like, would you say that you have different approaches with that mindset wise?
I have to think about that, and I'll let you answer. But I will say my one concern was that trying to make it as foreboding as possible in the beginning of Stashbox, right? Because like, once we hit the rails, we're running, and everything's either incredibly interesting or incredibly gross. But to hit that point, it's like 7 pages, right? You know, which isn't a quarter of the book, it's less, but like, it is a slow kind of tick, tick, tick up the roller coaster. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I was worried about, was like, am I not putting enough scary shit in the beginning of this book? You know what I mean? But I'm sorry, but that's the brief answer. But Jay, I'm concerned. Jay, I'm concerned about your length. I'd like to know more about your length. So really though, like, how do you think about page count and stuff like that?
I think I have some kind of the same worries as you do, mainly because I came from like, you know, I remember when I first started comics, or even before, you know, I feel like as every writer, and you think you dream about writing comics, you're like, all right, I have a 20 issue idea for a 20 issue run of a series, 25 issues, 15 issues, you know, like, you get all that, you have all these delusions of grandeur, and then you realize, oh wait, I have to fund those 15, 20, 25 issues. So I think I kind of really had to pull myself back and work on doing shorter stories, like kind of like Frederik does, like, you know, 2 pages, 3 pages. You know, the first comic I did was 3 pages, and it was really because I was like, okay, well, this is how much I can afford. I think it fit the story. Like, Together Forever was my first story that I had, you know, had basically produced, and you know, I think that was a lot of fun, and that kind of led me into doing some work for hyperepics.com, which is a sweet site that they basically do, where all their comics are 3-page stories, but they also they kind of have a composer who works for them and will do like a theme basically that plays as you're reading the story. So they were really cool. So that's cool. Me getting to do more stories for them and having to be constrained, like you said, I really had to look at, okay, what can I put in here? What's absolutely necessary? What's the bare bones? You know, what's my setup and my punchline? What can I fit in here? What's not important? And so, like you said, you know, I only had so much real estate. I really had to be, you know, was kind of constrained in it. But it taught me a lot, I think, to kind of look at my scripts and what's important, what's not.
I love that you say that too. Like, just as someone who wants to be writing comics and is writing and has ideas and stuff, that like one of the first things that I was told was, don't make like a magnum opus of a, you know, 5 compendium, whatever, not to pick on Walking Dead again, but like, don't do that story. Like, start small, do a 4-page, 6-page, 8, like single digit page count story first, and like focus on that and make it a really good story. And I was like, oh, how hard can that be? That sounds simple. And then I started writing and I was like, holy shit, this is really hard. Like, it's so hard to figure out the pacing and the hits and like get all the, you know, the tension and the release and all of those things in a much shorter page count. And so then like I'm learning way more about story composition and like all of those things as I'm just trying to figure out how to make this story that I had that could have been 20 pages into a single digit page comic idea, because you have to make it succinct.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Yeah.
and I think what's funny is doing the 3-page comics, doing 4-page comics, things like that. You know, there was even a couple times where I worked with Christian Dabari, and who's an amazing horror artist. I mean, artist in general, and a buddy of mine. But his was very much like, I really wanted to work with him. He had an opening. It was kind of like, okay, here's my budget. What does that get me? You know, and in that thing, he's like, that'll get you this many pages. I'm like, done. I will write you a script for that many pages. So,
That's actually pretty clever. Yeah, that's good.
with them. So I was like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. But I feel like it's almost like I trained the upper body more and forgot leg day, because then I think when I got to a point where, all right, I want to do a one shot. So I've got 24 pages now. So now it's like you write everything and you're like, okay, I'm at page 5. Oh shit. So it's like, what can I add in here? What do I need to beef it up a little bit? So I try in my head, I think, to go back to answer your question, Ian, is that with page count, I kind of try and give myself a target for what I want this story. Like if I'm sitting here and thinking with a story and I'm like, all right, say for Together Forever instance, I'm like, okay, you know, obviously for a full issue, you're going to want about 24 pages. I'm like, I think that fits this story, and kind of write it in and play around. You know, Family Matters was kind of the same. There's some budgetary constraints, but then there's some where, you know, it's a story that I'm excited about, and it's more of one to kind of get in there and get out. You know, and then that's just kind of a feel with that. But like Graveyard Shift was one where, I mean, that one was almost 40 pages. And so that one I wanted to breathe a little bit. I want these guys to kind of talk. And since it's the first book for Addison Grove, it's like, okay, you want people to get a feel of the, you know, the town and the atmosphere and all that stuff. So I always kind of try and give myself a goal of where I want it to be. And then sometimes it goes a little past, sometimes a little bit shorter, you know.
That's cool. Now, Fred, have you ever taken any of the like 2-page shorts that you've done and expanded them out into a larger story?
Sort of. The biggest expansion of a story that I've ever done, the first ever, and Jay will love to hear this, the first ever Seconds to Midnight story I've ever done was called Rights of the Moon. And essentially, Seconds to Midnight, or generally the idea of doing a 2-page or short story anthology came from me not being able to figure out what my first ever comic would be for unironically 1.5 years. Like I wanted to have my first ever comic be something, but all the ideas, just like you guys said, just kept spinning out of control, becoming these magnum opus that I just could not fit onto the page. So eventually I was like, all right, fuck it. My first ever comic is going to be 2 pages long. And I was like, I'll because I love werewolves. It's going to be about a guy stumbling through the woods, and then he transforms into a werewolf. That's it. And it worked. People really liked it. And then, like, summer of last year, right after I did my story for Boom, I was like, I still feel like drawing werewolves, because obviously the one time that I get a shot with a big publisher, I do a werewolf story. But I was like, I'm not full yet. I need another werewolf story. So I took that and then I expanded it to 6 pages. That's the one time that I expanded anything, was Rights of the Moon. 6 pages long. It's, in my opinion, the better version of the 2 stories, but that's just because I could expand the werewolf transformation to 3 pages, to like really grotesque 3 pages, and that was really good. Yeah,
that's awesome.
I mean, I just have to say, after hearing you talk and knowing Ian, you are too good for Ian. You need to come over here with me. And we're gonna do some werewolf, some amazing werewolfness now.
All about making those connections. Next up on the Price is Right here on the Long Box Podcast. I love hearing though, like the insight and the approach of taking a shorter story and expanding it into something more. Because like, is it? And I don't know who to ask this to directly. So fight to the death to figure out who answers it. But like, how do you determine what to add, when to add it? Like, is it similar to almost writing a completely, does it feel like a new story if you take like a 5-page story or a 6-page story and then suddenly like, I want to make this a one shot that's 24 pages. Like, does that end result feel very different as a story thematically than the short did? Fight.
I think I have a good example. So like when I did like Together Forever, I mean, it was a 3-page story. It was very much kind of a, set up, punchline, in and out. And so that one was like, I wanted to work with Jeremiah again, who did the art on that one and then did the expanded version. And so I had to really sit there and think, okay, what's this world? Can I get the same, punch behind it, expanding it that I had, with 3 pages. So it was definitely interesting and it was kind of fun to play around with these characters and to kind of, like basically what I felt with it is, I mean, it changed a lot. I mean, I think it was a male character in the first one. It's a female main character. There was only one main character in the original. And so this one, had kind of 2. And so that was a lot of fun I basically took the same world, same idea, and a couple of the punches that I really wanted, that I feel like were really strong and that would still work in this. But then I just kind of almost like started over. Like, okay, how would somebody else basically, react to these situations? So it was it was very much an interesting, exercise to do that.
Yeah. Ian, have you done similar before?
I think the closest I ever got was I did the first time I worked with Benjamin Philby was for like a 10-page story called Win Tremendous. And when we were getting ready we were putting together like a little mini anthology as a stretch goal for Tomb of the Black Horse. And that was going to be compiled of all of the anthology shorts that I did, all of the ones that he did, and of course the one we worked on together. And when I reread it, like his art was fine, the panels were fine, my dialogue was like incredibly cringy by my standards. So I didn't go back and rewrite it or expand it, but what I did go through is I went back and I rewrote all of the dialogue and contacted the letterer and had her re-letter it, and it came out much better. It's a wildly improved over the last one, but yeah, that's as close as I've gotten, and that was reasonably easy to do. You know what I mean? Like that didn't. I was adding a little bit more depth, but like I had probably 5 years of experience. So going back and kind of like doing touch up was, wasn't much of a lift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So completely changing gears, because I forget who mentioned it at this point. But you were talking, I think it was either Ian or Fred, talking about like the decisions that you make as an 18-year-old, and how they're not always the best, most adult decisions. I want to publicly shame you. Like, what's the worst decision you feel like you made when you were 18? And this is for the room.
I don't know if I can say it on the air.
This is a safe space, Ian.
Well, I was lucky I got arrested when I was 17. So the only time I was arrested was when I was a month before I turned 18. So I was spared the wrath of the law. So that doesn't count. It would probably be doing drugs somewhere at some point in time. Do you know what I mean? It was probably one of those where I just went, ooh, this was a mistake. I should not have consumed what I did where I was. But that was, but I don't think it was ever anything like life-threatening or life-endangering or whatever. But yeah, probably just a bad trip when I was like 18 or 19. Not the time I went to see a Muppet Christmas Story. That was a wonderful time to see.
Yeah. Only top marks for Muppet Christmas Carol. I love that movie.
Yeah.
I don't even care.
It's even better when Kermit is melting into the cobblestone. It's just phenomenal. Oh, I'm the only one? Oh, okay. All right. I guess I'm weird then.
So now when Ebenezer is flying through the air, so's Ian.
Yeah. Like, this is back in the day before they had recliner seats, but my man, I turned it into a reclining seat.
If you try hard enough.
I was all the way back.
Please tell me you were in like a onesie pajama and like a cap, just like he would have.
No.
I was probably nightgown.
Jay, as hard as you might find it to believe, I was probably just exactly like fucking this. Not really gone through the style evolution over the past couple of decades. So
that's fair.
Fair enough.
Anyone else? Yeah.
I can't be the only one who did something stupid. Or lots of things, depending on how much you want to infer.
I'm thinking.
I mean, I did some stuff. I mean, I wasn't caught. I mean, what's the statute of limitations? Right? I mean, by 18 now, if I'm hitting 40. I mean,
what, murder? I mean, I don't know.
I don't think that ever goes away.
Murder? I don't think so. Murder.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if they don't find the body, it goes away. No, I think I remember high school. There was a good buddy of mine that one guy kept messing with him and just kind of pushed him too far. So we may have gone and put some condiments and other things on their car when at night or asleep. So slightly regret that, because I've gotten to the point I'm like, all right, yeah, damaging property is not cool. No matter how big of a dick you might be.
The workaround for that is, instead of using like condiments that suck to clean off, what's way more satisfying is, and hear me out, buy zebra cakes and then throw those at walls, doors, windows, cars, whatever. The satisfying like thunk that they make when they hit is and the person who you've done it to, all they have to do is like pull it off and wipe it and like and yeah, obviously eat it, but like, if you don't eat the whole box by yourself in the car between the different houses as you're driving to zebra cake your ex's house. Hypothetically,
that was always my problem. I was so like all my grief eating that I ate everything I was going to throw away. So then I was just like, fine, I'm going home.
You just like kick the tire.
Okay. It's not worth it. Yeah.
I have to bring this up real quick, and I'm sorry for the digression, but there, where I live in northeastern Pennsylvania, specifically, I believe only in my town, and I'm asking the group, have y'all, there was a practice when I was a kid. It no longer happens, but it was called tic-tacking. Does anyone know what I'm talking about?
No.
Tic-tacking?
Tic-tacking.
Is this like before TikToking, I guess?
No. But so what it was, this is like so weird when you explain it. We had a lot of cornfields in the area. So you would go around in the fall and you would steal some corn, and you would shuck it into like a bag or a satchel or whatever. And then usually around dusk or just after it got dark, you would walk around your town with like a buddy or whatever, and you would just take some of the corn and throw it at people's front doors or windows or whatever. And it would make a noise. And you go, huh? And then you just look and you go, oh, this is fucking tic-tackers. And we used to do that all the time. And I explain it to people now. And it was like the most innocuous form of pumpkin smashing or TPing trees or whatever, right? You didn't have to clean up toilet paper. You didn't have to clean shaving cream or soap off of your car. You didn't have to repair. You were just at home, I don't know, watching Matlock or whatever. And you just go, huh? Oh, it's tic-tackers, right? But it was and I feel like, go ahead.
All I can imagine now is that the old guy from Billy Madison coming out on his porch and being like, it's corn again.
It's corn again.
Damn kids are throwing corn at the house.
Yeah, but I feel like there's just, it's like this, I don't know, I found it so interesting because no one knows what I'm talking about and everybody reacts the way you guys did. But it's also just this this very kind of passive, non-intrusive form of vandalism. It's just like, hey, I'm going to annoy you just a little bit, right?
Just
a tiny, for like 5 seconds, you're going to go, huh? What? And then go, oh, all right. And then just go right back to what you were doing. I know, it was so weird. And like this does not exist anywhere else as far as I can see. If you're watching the live stream right now, comment with your tic-tacking policy.
Oh my God! Here comes the new trend on TikTok.
That's gonna be it. Yeah.
No, you couldn't do it now. There would be mass casualties. You kidding me? Like, holy, it's not in this day and age. Forget it.
All right, Ian. So I have a question for you and kind of Frederik and how you guys work. So when you're writing a script, I mean, obviously, as the writer, you get certain visuals in your head, and so what you write, you know, and how you conceive it in your mind may be completely different than how Frederik does. So I like to try and find people, or what I kind of like tell my artists is that, hey, you know, you're better at this, you know, not better at this, but you know what you're doing. Like, how much freedom do you kind of talk with, say, Frederik, when you guys were coming to this, like for him to, you know, take some shots, change some angles, do some things, you know, and obviously I'm sure there was some conversation between it, but, or are you very much like, hey, no, I really need it like this, you know, like how much freedom do you like to give your artist when you're collaborating?
None. He's so incredibly mean.
Just, Frederik, just remember to stick to the rehearsed answers that I sent you before the podcast.
Yes.
I don't see you looking down a lot, and that makes me think that you're talking off the top of your head, and that makes me nervous.
Blink twice if you're in danger.
I'm sorry. I am.
Well, I'll let no, Fred, go ahead and like seriously, you answer that because I'm interested to hear what liberties you took with my precious darling script that we've already established is not worthy of your caliber.
That he hasn't already beaten you about.
Ian sent me the script in late 2023. I love the script. No,
I would not dare change a word.
But to really answer that question,
oh God, what's it say?
Hold on, let me type something. All right.
No, Ian, you haven't paid me my $250 to say whatever you want.
I so have.
No, so basically what I'd like to do is, of course, you know, when Ian and I first started talking, I knew roughly like the kind of visuals that Ian was like contacting me because of. Like, I knew the Seconds to Midnight stories that he was like kind of inspired by for contacting me. So that's the kind of stuff that I went with. But also, as I'm reading the story, like I said, I had a bunch of different visuals in mind. So when I'm adapting a certain thing, like a page, Ian will describe what's supposed to be in the shot. But in order for the storytelling to flow, and in order, of course, for there to be consistency, but also for there, like I said, to be like an element of acting and an element of like chemistry between the characters, I might change some stuff. But every time I change stuff, we have a Discord where we share everything, and I will tell Ian, I changed this, this, and this. Like, I did edits to a couple of pages a couple of weeks before the pre-launch started. And page 1 in particular, I did some edits to where Ian was like, hey, these are great, but I preferred the version that you originally sent me. And I kind of like Frankenstein those two together to the, in my opinion, pretty perfect page 1 that we now have. So I will communicate to Ian. Like I said, I've invented a couple of panels in between to like really show and tell the kind of stuff that we're trying to communicate. But whatever I do, I openly, transparently communicate it to Ian. I'll let him know either ahead of time or when I send him the pages. And I have no problem changing that either. Like, I'm not precious about it in a way where I'm like, Ian, how fucking dare you say that this panel? Like, I'll just hear what Ian has to say, because the idea originated in his head. So whatever like the purest version of the idea is of Stashbox was in Ian's head that, you know, I can't access with a drill or otherwise. So I'll just listen to what he has to say and what advices he will give me, and then I'll adapt them.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's you know, obviously running a Kickstarter campaign, as has often been discussed, is a lot like being a project manager, right? There's so many different facets of the production that you have to oversee, and then you know, you kind of become your own editor when you're dealing with with your artist. And you know, the best thing for that, just like, you know, managing in a restaurant or a company or wherever else, it's just the more open, clear communication you get, the better it's going to be, right? So Frederik was great about passing me thumbnails, and he's like, here's what I'm going to be working on this week. And I tried to get him feedback, which I don't think was very often. I remember like once or twice, like, hey, could we just make sure that this, and this happens, right?
Yeah.
And that's never artistic stuff. That's always like plot related stuff where it's like, I want people to be able to see this. Like, I think one time it was like, hey, can we see the coffee table in this like establishing shot, because like I need that coffee table later. It's Chekhov's coffee table, you know.
Yeah.
And how we use that later is like, I don't want people to have not seen this beforehand, so they know where it's coming from.
Now, please tell me, when he told you this, you just started drawing it in every panel, and it's getting closer and closer to the reading.
Yeah, exactly. Just LED arrows in every room.
Somebody has like a coffee table tattoo. Look at
Well, now that you say it, I kind of like that idea.
We have to add a line where Harris goes like, "Fuck, that's a damn fine coffee table."
Oh my god! Listen. This is a little behind baseball, Frederik. I just think I thought of a perfect idea for that print, the one print that's not done, the one that we're waiting for. Yeah. I think I've just figured something out. I'll message you later about it. But the whole coffee table conversation, it just clicked in my head.
It's it's a fake IKEA ad for a coffee table.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I'm writing that down.
Making things happen. We're making comic books happen here, folks.
Coffee table ad.
I love it.
No one's gonna get that until after the book comes out, but when the book comes out, that's gonna hit.
Oh yeah.
That's how you do marketing, right? You said it's okay.
Yeah. You get like super, like 3 layers deep on the Chekhov thing here.
try to make it as confusing as possible. I believe that's what they told me.
Yeah.
In all of the marketing
nothing makes
classes.
sense. Yeah.
I walked by.
Okay, so coffee tables, killing things. We haven't talked about horror movies yet. And as much as I love horror, I'm probably going to be out of my element with what was said before we went live. So, like, I know you already touched on it a little bit, Fred, and also, no, timeout on me. You haven't answered, sir, a bad decision that you made when you were 18.
Yeah.
You're not getting out of it. So
I will say I was an incredibly boring teenager. I was just such a boring teenager. I just played video games all the time. I watched movies. Like, I would have double features by myself in my room like 3 times a week, which is when I would watch all those horror films that Ian is so surprised I've seen. But yeah, the video games part led to like what would have probably been the most irresponsible decision, which was in 2016 when I graduated high school. Doom 2016 had come out a couple of weeks before that, and I adore the Doom franchise. I love the Doom games so much. I even have the Mark of the Slayer tattooed on my hand, which will tell you how much I was invested in that game, to the point where I was this close to skipping my graduation party and just having my graduation paper sent in the mail to me because I was so addicted to playing Doom 2016. And like 2 days before that, I was like, yeah, fuck it. I'll just go But let me tell you, there was just Doom before that, Doom after that, and just nothing else.
It's Frederick. It's so funny when you said the words Doom 16. I was like, oh, over here in America, we're referring to the presidential election of that year. It's a completely different connotation on this side of the ocean.
Wildly different, some might say, and also like
also probably a lot of the same. I mean, how far
Yeah.
away are we from just floating demons and
I don't think we're that far off. I don't remember where I was going before this. Oh, movies, horror movies. I would love to hear like top 3 or top 5, whatever's easiest for you, like horror movies or movies that made you love horror. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I like the personal twist because then, like, horror snobs can't be like, ugh, that's your choice. Seriously, the cinematography is so bad. Like, shut up.
Well,
That's not what this is about.
Jay, go first so I can do that to him.
Perfect.
God, probably the biggest ones from a kid, or my like most influential. I would say The Howling is one.
Fuck yeah.
I'd have to say Creep Show was a big one.
He's just buttering you up, Fred. Don't fall for it.
No, I'd say probably Nightmare on Elm Street. Those were the 3 that were really big. I already told you, Fred. We're much more compatible than you and Ian.
This is all a sales pitch.
So...
This was all curated by Jay months ago. He was like, "Hey, I really want to work with this guy, but I don't know how to just approach him. I need a wingman. Can you like host a show with all of us together?" And I was like, "I'm with you, man. I got your back."
So
yeah, we're just gonna leave this live stream as like a polyamorous trio.
Hey, I'm okay with that too.
I want to bounce off of what Jay said. So yeah, for me, I was in the Freddy Krueger fan club as a child. So Nightmare on Elm Street was very, but I think the one that really kind of like keyed me into the franchise was 3, because 3 was like the first new one that came out when I was like old enough to see them. And I think a lot of people argue, 3 is one of the better ones. Some would say the best. But yeah, that was it. It was also, for me, it was a trip to the theater with my father to see The Fly when I was 9 years old.
God.
I want to remind everybody that he was a tremendous father. I had great parents. And in 1986, sometimes you just took your kid to see The Fly. Sometimes you took him to see a hard R. So my dad was responsible for taking me to like tons of movies that I probably shouldn't have gone to see in the theater. And The Fly was one of them. And The Fly was like the first time that I had seen a movie that didn't scare me, but like tested my limits, right? Like right around like the tooth scene, right? Like where, he's pulling his teeth out. I was like, hey, I got to go to the bathroom, and just got up and started like kind of pacing back and forth. And, but that was great because it was one of those things where it was like I got through it, and now it's one of my favorite films. So for me, that was a lot of stuff that that kind of like set the baseline for me. But recently, like I do find myself a big fan of like elevated horror, and I think one of my favorite things is that I feel like we've got maybe a half dozen directors that have less than like 5 films under their belt that I think are poised to just kick absolute ass over the next decade, right? I mean, you've got Jordan Peele, who's basically on like an all hits, no losses streak. You've got Zach Kreger, who did Barbarian. He's got another movie coming out this year. He's going to be the guy doing the Resident Evil remake. Jay and I were talking about Fede Alvarez. Jay was correcting me because I forgot the movies that he directed, but like Fede Alvarez, I think, is also doing great stuff. You've got like Eggers, you've got Astor, you've got who am I forgetting? Somebody else. Coralie Farjah or whatever, the lady who directed The Substance. I just think there's like tons of potential out there. And for me, and again, getting back to the whole therapy thing, it's like it's nothing for me if there's not something thematic in it, right? That's I think why I like elevated horror so much, because it's like, well, it's more than just the guy with the knife, or it's more than just the alien or the demon. It is there is all of that horror that we carry around with us. And I think that's where like I draw a ton of inspiration from, like in modern day. I know Frederik's going to say the Vortelock.
What? No, that's not one of my favorites.
No, I know. I'm just kidding.
Okay,
But the Vortelock was another movie that Frederik turned me on to that was fucking amazing. Go ahead, Jay. What were you going to say?
Okay, so this is a funny story that I heard today. It's not my story, but it still kind of blew my mind a little bit. So, Christopher Landon, who is doing, like he did Happy Death Day, he did a lot of the paranormals, you know, he wrote Hard Eyes, and he's doing that movie Drop, right?
Mm.
And so for that, he was on a podcast I listened to called The Kingcast today. And so they're talking, and the only reason I say this is it's funny, and it blew my mind when he reveals this connection. But he's going on about movies, and he talks about, you know, his parents were divorced, and he's like, you know, my mom was real strict. He goes, but my dad, and he goes, man, he's like 7 years old. He was showing me, he's like, we were watching horror movies. He let me and my sister watch, and he's like, the only ones that he cut off or said we couldn't watch were was Maniac and God, I'm not able to think of the other one. Anyway, but he goes, everything else was good. We watched Aliens, we watched The Fly, we watched, you know, he's all this, and he's like, I'm 7 years old, 8 years old. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, oh, that sounds like a cool dad. And then one of the guys goes, oh, yeah. He goes, your dad was mentioned in It. And I'm like, his dad? And I never put it again. His dad was Michael Landon from like Little House on the Prairie.
Oh.
Yeah, that's his dad. And I'm like,
Shit.
oh, my God. I just imagined the dad from Little House on the
Wow.
Prairie.
What?
Horror movies. Yeah, that blew my mind. I was like, I didn't realize that was his dad.
Wow.
It's Nepo babies all the way down. Let me say.
Oh, I wouldn't say that, but I mean, it killed me that I was like, oh my God, like the guy that was on Little House on the Prairie.
Right. Well, yeah, because it's like when you go, oh, Osgood Perkins is the son of Anthony Perkins, and you go, yes, his filmography makes sense, right? But you have a guy who's the son of like the most milquetoast, nicest. Like, I dare you to think about Michael Landon without thinking of a field. It's like a field at any time.
Hell of a tic-tacker, that guy.
Yeah, right.
It kind of broke. Well,
The access he had, could you imagine?
I will say the story broke my heart a little bit because he was like, I guess he said his dad was a big horror movie fanatic, and he's like, man, I would love to make a horror movie. He's like, you know, he goes, gotta be so much fun. He asked him, he's like, why don't you? He's like, no one would let me, because I feel like he had such that persona. Yeah. Like, no one's gonna put Christopher Landon in it. You know, it's just like, oh, that breaks my heart. But yeah, I'm like, oh my God, okay, cool.
Typecasting, man.
Yeah.
That actually gave me a couple more minutes to think of my top three.
Okay, let's hear it.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah.
Because I was like, you know, I've been thinking. I would say my favorite horror film of all time is Werner Herzog's Nosferatu. That to me is one, because it's one of the few good German films, and we just do not have that many great films in general. But because it is like the approach to remaking something before remakes were like really all that cool, and especially like a German director remaking the work of another German director. And in a similar fashion to how we talked about expanding shorter stories into longer formats, the way that Herzog was able to take that movie and make it entirely his own and create this like absolutely bizarre, nightmarish world. And also the way that he wrote the film as well is absolutely beautiful. And I think no horror experience, at least in my opinion, for me, holds a candle to that. I absolutely love that movie. And then, obviously, I've talked about it at least twice now, Mario Bava's Black Sabbath. Go watch it. It's an absolutely awesome and gorgeous movie. Mario Bava wrote it, directed it, and he was the cinematographer. So, you know, he knew what the fuck was up when he was making that film. And the horror host between the different segments, because it's an anthology film, is an old man, Boris Karloff. And Boris Karloff, in all of his Boris Karloffness, announces the different segments in the coolest way possible. Until at the very end, when they adapt Tolstoy's Vordelok story, he just fucking announces the story, bam, cut, and he shows up as the fucking Vordelok at the end. And he's like, no, I'm double giving this one. It's so fucking cool.
That's awesome.
When he shows up in the first scene, I almost expect him to do one of these. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's that level of, like, you know what I mean? Where he's like, see, I did it. Like,
yeah, he was such a bad bitch for that. He's like such a great, I love him. And I guess the third one would have to be It Follows. That was the horror film of my teenage years. To me, the best soundtrack for a horror film of all time. Disaster piece crafted with that is phenomenal. And the eerie out of timiness mixed with the kind of innocence of youth being corrupted theme of that film, and just the overall vibe of it, it's just so phenomenal. Like, every time I rewatch that film, like, my friends will be like, yeah, it's about a monster that you contract through sex. And then they watch it and they're blown away. When my friends dubbed the movie, instead of calling it It Follows, he called it If You Fuck, It Follows. And I guess, you know, that's the plot of the movie, but just so suspenseful, so incredible. And one of the few horror movies where I would say crafted for the movie medium. You cannot adapt It Follows in any other medium. It's just absolutely great.
I was talking about this to somebody last night, and I'm not saying it was the first one, obviously, but I would like everyone else's thoughts that It Follows was kind of like one of the siren songs that led us into the age of elevated horror. Right? Like, it was one of those movies where it was like, there's obviously more going on under the surface here, and the movie's not going to expressly communicate that to you, right? But like, you're going to pick it up. And I really dig that. I also, last year I saw the TV Glow, and I do think that is a spiritual successor in a lot of ways to that.
That's cool. So while you were all thinking and talking about your top three, I was curious if anybody in the chat also had some top threes. We've got some folks sounding off, which is great. Please come back and sound off all the time. But Dylan throws out The Orphanage, which admittedly I need to write down because I have not watched that.
Good one.
So
we've got The Orphanage. We've got Marionette Kill.
So the Marionette Kill is the that is the first guy. That's one of the first kills. That's maybe the second kill. It's the guy who doesn't talk. But I think Dylan's close. Really, the best kill in Nightmare on Elm Street 3 is the Jennifer. Who is it? Can't remember her name. But it's the syringe kills. It is
That's a rough one.
But here's the thing. But everyone goes, oh, not the syringes. It's the needle marks on her arm that are like thirsty little mouths. Like, that is horrifying. Yeah,
agreed.
Yeah, because 3 is the best, as was. So basically, Jay, you're just wrong. It's not the original. It's 3. We've also got Horror Noob, so please be taking notes, G-Matrix, but we've got Paranormal Activity, which I am not going to lie, the ones that stick with me end up being the like ghost stories, the hauntings, the like demonic activity. Those are the ones that, like, above everything else, that's the genre that I'm like, is everything okay? That was the dog, right?
Yeah.
And then Get Out, which was just uncomfortable to watch for me.
Yeah,
and then the originals of both It and Child's Play. And so, like, just wild stuff. For me, the movie, like, the first movie, speaking of dads that let their kids watch horror movies, I was at my Nana's house and they were doing a double feature of The Birds and Psycho. And I was like 7 and I sat and watched both of them. She was like cleaning the house. She was like mopping the walls, the walls, like sweet, all the malls. She was just driving around.
It was the 80s, Jay. Malls were around.
I know.
I bet The Birds at a young age was probably pretty wild though. Right?
It was, yeah. And like the whole shower / scene, I was like, am I gonna see boobies? What are those?
No, you're not. That
Totally
man,
not.
that man worked overtime, like to not show anything. The construction of that scene is insane. It's like it's such a well-regarded scene. You never see the knife piercing flesh. You never see any nudity. There's just so much art in the way that he handled that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I always have to include that for me is always a combo, like the Grindhouse movies, like that they just go together for me. So that's always part of it because that was the first like, oh my God, this is terrifying. And I definitely was like hiding from birds for the rest of the summer.
As you should.
Which my mom loved for me.
Yeah.
And then like the original Evil Dead movie. It just like something about the demon chick in the basement and like the pencil and the raspberry jam as it's like grinding around in the ankle and it's using like I looked at my best friend and I was like, dude, we gotta go play video games or something, like something happy, you know? And he was like, yeah, man. And so we went and played some RPGs. And then for me, like there's so many other ones that I'm like, oh, well, these are my favorites, but I love The Descent.
Tremendous movie.
Like because I'm a nerd, like my background is in media and I studied aesthetics and I can actually talk about the letterboxd hot words that I hate letterboxd nerds. And I don't care if any of you are on it because you don't seem like letterboxd nerds. I hate them. I hate them all because they're using the like hot buzzwords that mean nothing if you're not using them properly. As someone who has a degree in broadcasting, the shot composition in that movie where you're in a cave and you've got these monsters and you're only seeing this much of the screen. I can't be big enough to, you're only seeing this much of the frame. I was like, oh God, it's terrifying. It's so well composed that like that feeling that they evoke just from like how they shot every scene makes me love that movie. So that like those are my three, but then like I love found footage. I love Cloverfield, especially with not seeing the full monster until the end.
Oh hell yeah, that's a good one.
I'm glad you're on my page, Fred. I'm gonna take you as my artist. We're all just all right. Then also though, like with horror, is there? I know we've already talked like werewolves obviously are awesome and big favorites on this stream, but like, is there a specific genre that regardless of what it is, you're just like, that's not for me. I don't care.
Go ahead. You go first.
I would say, I think when you got into the late 2000s to 2010s, some of the what I guess you would call like the torture porn era. That was kind of a hard sell for me. Now, I did love the Saws, so maybe that's a bit hypocritical, but like a lot of them, they started getting into movies that were so like trying to be realistic, grotesque, and it was just for the shock value. And so that just wasn't my cup of tea. Personally, especially like another one like the Human Centipede, like some things when you're just going way out there, it's like I watched it, okay, but just like this is uncomfortable.
I watched it to say that I've seen it.
Right. So this is thinking about it, because I'm trying to think of like I'm not coming up with genres, right? But I think the important thing is like, no matter what you prefer, I think if you're gonna try to create something in that genre, I think it's really important to kind of just consume as much as you can, whether it's comics or movies or TV, because even in a movie like Lewis brought up, Paranormal Activity, I think that movie's fine. I'm not a huge found footage movie, but there is a scene in that movie that I think is tremendous. And I think that if you're a horror writer or you're trying to write horror, not this scene exactly, but something reminiscent of this. And it's when the third act of the film, when the expert finally shows up at their house and he comes in and he's immediately like, oh, no, I gotta go. Right? And he's just like, yeah, this thing isn't happy that I'm here. You're on your own. And he just leaves and you're like, oh, we were waiting for that for the whole movie. And this guy's just like, I'm out.
Yeah.
And the level of despair that you feel. And another movie that I'm not the biggest fan of, The Conjuring. I'm not sure if it's 1 or 2 or whatever. But there's a part where there's a chair moving around, and they call the police because I don't know, like, what do? The chair's like, we'll just call the cops. And I'm like, oh, I know what happens here. The cops show up and the chair doesn't move, right? And it makes them look crazy. No, the cops show up, the chair moves, and then the cops are like, yeah, we don't know. See you later. And I'm like, that's horrifying. That's so scary. You're supposed to be in.
That was the second Conjuring.
The second one. Thank you.
Yeah.
But even in movies that maybe I'm not crazy about, man, there's still really, really good stuff there to take away. Where it's like, man, calling up the authority figures, whoever they may be in your story, and having them go, yeah, I got nothing. That's like, oh no, like I am screwed. That's a really good way, I think, to infuse a story with heart.
Well, and I also find that the worst films, or the biggest mistake you can make, is almost just being boring or being, and I say like kind of vanilla, because I think that's when you become forgettable. Even the worst movies are still talked about today because they're just so wonderfully and wild swings that don't work, but they still inspire the next generation to do it better, or to do it correctly, or hey, oh man, if you only did it this way, look, I'll show you. I mean, there's some movies, and everybody has their own cup of tea, so I'm not trying to be the guy that's shitting on a movie that somebody likes, but God, what was it? A perfect example was a movie. I believe it was Daybreakers, which is like great cast. Like, you've got Sam Hill, you got Willem Dafoe, you've got God, what's his name? I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Ethan Hawke
was in Sinister.
Patrick Wilson? No, he's not in that.
Damn it. Anyway, Ethan Hawke. Sorry. So I mean, you get like a stellar cast, but like, I tell you, I saw the movie when it came out, but I had forgotten I saw it. I saw like trying to watch something for Halloween. I'm like, oh, okay, this looks interesting, and I'm like, okay, and then the end, I was like, holy shit, I've seen this movie before, but I completely forgot.
Well, there's a podcast I listen to, and this is a phenomenon. They talk about movies that are like forgotten films, right? Like this movie no longer exists. And Jay, don't take this as like an attack or anything, but like we were talking the other night about movies. The Benicio del Toro Wolfman. That's kind of just a forgotten film. Like not a lot of people like ever talk about it. It has no stickiness. One of my favorites to bring up is Michael Fassbender starred in an Assassin's Creed movie.
Oh yeah.
And nobody, nothing. It's just like people might think you're lying if you brought that up. That's how little that film exists. And that Daybreakers is anytime I'm playing like Cinematrix or Movie Grid, and it's like you're trying to get the rarest answers possible, and the question is Ethan Hawke, and it's like, oh, fucking Daybreakers. Nobody remembers Daybreakers.
Yeah.
Also, bad name for a vampire film.
I remember it now, but only because I'm like, oh, I watched this movie twice.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it.
So, all right. So I know we're getting up on time. So I want to hit the business end of things because this could easily be a 4-hour thing if Ian wasn't ruining our fun with things going on. So, okay. So both Kickstarters for Family Matters and Stashbox, A, they're live right now, so you can back them right now. B, they're both linked in the description below, so 2 taps will take you to either and both campaigns. Super easy, super simple for you to do. At least check them out, share the show so that people can hear why these people are qualified to make terrifying tales, because they are, because they're disturbed individuals and they lean into it. They're, unashamed about it for the most part. Mom, thanks. You have until, I'm looking at my notes because I have a terrible memory. For Stashbox, that campaign ends on May 2nd. So you've got a couple weeks now. And then Family Matters, not to be outdone, ends just a couple days later on 5/7, because Jay always has to just be a couple more. than his competitors. So 5'2" and 5'7". So just tell yourself 5'2". Don't wait. Just back it right now. Actually, go and do the thing. I'm totally fine with you leaving the chat and going to back these campaigns because they're both going to be excellent horror comics that you're going to want to have in your collections. Now, the other thing, we got to pose to get, because I'd like to take a screenshot. Let's do that. Let's be, but whatever. It makes my life easier. So I'm going to take a screenshot and I'm going to use that as the thumbnail.
Can I choreograph?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Chris, I want you staring straight ahead at the camera with a big, pleasant smile on your face. Everybody else, let's all react to Chris like it's the most horrifying thing we've ever seen in our lives.
Okay.
You ready?
All right. 3, 2, 1. Cool. What a writer. What a writer. Always has to have it.
It's perfect.
You wound me, sir.
The other thing that I always love to do, if you're new here, if you're the first time tuning in, I love doing this show for a multitude of reasons. One of them being that everybody has a different background that they bring into this medium that we love called comics. As saying that, I also love hearing from people and about their perspectives, experiences, what they want people to hear. And so at the end of every episode, I stop talking, which is incredibly easy when you have 3 very chatty and excellent guests on your show. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. Please don't feel like there was undertone. I'm not my mother with that.
She doesn't watch this, does she?
No, she doesn't know how YouTube works. Even though she has an iPhone. Like, it's insane, dude. I had to spend like a year teaching her how to use her iPhone, and now she just figured out memojis, and so she's sending them all like, dude, it's fine. She's a sweet lady, and I will be spending the day with her tomorrow, taking her out for errands. Anyway, I was saying, I'm going to stop talking again because I'm just at this point trashing on everybody. But I want to go, let's start with Ian, and then we'll go Jay, and then we'll end with Fred. If there's anything you want people to hear from you, it could be about your campaign, about your book, about indie comics. It could be why Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is actually the unsung hero of that franchise. Like, whatever the content is, I don't care. I just want to make sure that each of you have a chance to let anybody that might be seeing this or hearing this hear directly from you with no limitations. So Ian first, and then Jay, and then.
Well, I want everyone to come out and see J. Michael Donohue's one-man show that he's working on, where he plays Bill Burr's more relaxed cousin, Chill Bill. So the name of the play is Chill Burr, and you can see it at his local high school. Tickets are available online, but they're selling out quick.
Perfect. Jay, anything?
I mean, how the hell do you follow that?
You don't. I think that was his
Do
point.
your Bill Burr impersonation.
Oh, motherfucker. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I if you can only back one book, back Family Matters. If you can only
Shots
back
fired.
2, if you can only back 2, I know plenty of others. No, I would just say, I feel like I love storytelling. I love comics. So any support, backing the book, sharing the link is all very much appreciated. Ian's a fantastic writer, so I feel like you can't go wrong getting Stash Box. And Frederik, I've loved all the work and all the pages so far that I've shown. I mean, Ian can attest to this. I think he was we were chatting, kind of gearing up for our launches, and he's like, "Oh, check out these pages." And I was like, "Oh man!" I was like, I think the first thing was, I'm like, "You wouldn't be mad if I stole Frederik or Fred, would you?" I think we. So that's I'm just excited. Back all the books.
All the books, or at least these
All
two.
the
Yeah.
We'll start with these two.
Yeah.
Well, Jay's first, our second, and then everybody else after.
I say you do. No, you have to sign up 2 computers. You get on each, and you just click pledge at the same time. Bam, both of them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Everybody buy a new computer too if you need one. The prices are going to go way down soon. They're going to be cheap as hell. Once I start screwing in all those little screws myself, you'd be buying $35, Pentium Core 2. I don't know what they're called. All right, I'm sorry, Frederik. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, what else is there to say? If you want a fucking cool werewolf comic, go back Family Matters. If you want a cool psychedelic suburban horror comic, go back Stash Boss.
Also back Family Matters. No.
It's been super fun just chatting. If you want 2-page horror comics, Seconds to Midnight comes back next Friday the 18th. And I'm honestly just happy to be here. Like, it's the best thing in the entire world for me to just be able to make comics and get to know the people who make all the other comics. It's the warmest, kindest family there is, which makes all the stuff between Ian and Jay even weirder. But I'm just happy to have chatted with you all, and it's been amazing.
I'm really looking forward to you and Jay working together so I can just send the most passive-aggressive messages ever. Like, just wake up in the morning and just, like, come downstairs, get a cup of coffee, and just like, oh, let's get going. Also, hey, sign up for my newsletter at my website, ianmondrick.com. Sign up for Jay's shows at chillbird.com. Buy tickets there as well.
Subscribe to Longbox Punk.
Yeah, and subscribe to Longbox Punk, Jesus, and
Why the fuck aren't you subscribed?
every video, watch every video, and listen. If you're not going to watch the video, just put it on and walk away from the computer. It doesn't cost you shit.
Still counts for me.
Do you know what I do? I just play Spotify on silent all night long, so the artists that I love get an extra 15 cents when I wake up in the morning.
What a
go,
guy!
perfect.
You're such a giver, Ian. Such
now
a
I feel
giver.
bad because I made that last part up.
Subscribe immediately, or I will live in your walls until you do.
Hey, he's basically got Britney Spears on repeat, so he is keeping her out of the poorhouse. All right?
Someone's got to do it.
I mean, yeah.
Someone's got to do it. I'm glad that everybody that was watching had almost as much fun as I feel like we have. This has been an absolute blast. I always love chopping it up with not only indie creators, not only horror fans, but indie creators that are making horror comics. So thank the three of you, especially Fred, for hanging out until like 4 a.m. for you. Thanks for hanging out with us. Other than Ian, if you got to drop, I totally get it. But hang on after I end this. I got logistics for you. For the two of you, the three of you, if you have 2 more minutes, Ian. And then everybody else, do what they said. Subscribe, like, just leave the channel play. It'll autoplay. You don't even have to attend to it. And it'll get I'm not doing any of this shit for views. But I have all of their blue skies if you want to keep up with them, as well as all of the Longbox Punk socials in the description as well. So after you back all the campaigns, or at least there too, then you can go and follow them all, because the more that we support indie creators, the better the indie creator scene will be, because when the waters rise, not just one boat rises, but all of them do. So that is going to do it for this episode. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for being interactive in the chats. Do all the things. And gents, we'll talk in just a second. For the rest of you, we're out of here. What's a good podcast without a good tagline? This one's mine. Go do what's good for you, punks, and read some horror indie comics, because we are out of here.
Talk to your parents on drugs.